Hey everybody, thanks for joining me on my blog again this week. If you like these blogs, I'd really appreciate it if you would like and subscribe down below. Just because it kind of helps get it some traction and maybe other people will see it and possibly whatever's said in these videos might help them as well in their relationship with Jesus. Tomorrow, January 20th, is the Presidential Inauguration. So Joe Biden will step out and Donald Trump will step in. Now, just by saying those names, I often notice that people have sort of an emotional reaction to either one of the candidates. And often I've discovered when talking to people that they will have had really strained relationships with other people in their lives because they have such a strong connection to one party or the other. As a result, some of those relationships between those people are really damaged. There have been people who've lost lifetime friends as a result of political differences. There are people who won't talk to family members and resent them because they voted for the candidate that they didn't vote for. I remember last year, right before Thanksgiving and Christmas, there were people blogging about how you can avoid certain people in your family just because you have a different affiliation or interest in politics than that person does, and you didn't want to have to talk about them, politics at Thanksgiving or Christmas, or even see them for that matter. And as a result, there really have been lots of people who've lost relationships just over politics. I've got to encourage you, though, if you're a Christian person, this really should not be. Jesus said, "Love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength." That was the first and greatest commandment, he said. And the second one, he said, is actually like the first one, and that is to love your neighbor as yourself. But there are lots of people who forget that command and say, well, but they voted for Biden or they voted for Trump, and I just can't, have a relationship with that person anymore. I just can't understand how they could possibly do that, how they could have that heart to vote for that person. As a result, I just have to cut them out of my life. That's really hard to imagine, but it's true and it happens to a lot of people, and it just should not be the case for Christian people. Last fall, I had a really long conversation on the phone with one of my best friends. I have known this person since we were 4 years old, which means we have been friends for 53 years. And he is on one side of the political spectrum and I was on the other. And the conversation was pretty involved about politics and the two candidates and so forth. And it never got heated or uncomfortable, but it was intense, to say the least. But you know what? At the very end of the call, we both said, hey, we have been friends for 53 years. No matter what happens here, we're not losing a friendship over politics. We just can't let that happen. And to his credit and mine, I guess, we have chosen to not let that happen. It's just not going to be a difference maker in our lives. It's just politics. Politics is politics, but it's not going to be something that's going to kill 53 years of friendship. If you find yourself struggling in this area, then do an internal heart check. Really think about that, because you have to say, have I lost friends over this? Am I strained in a relationship with a family member over politics? If that's true, then you may need to spend some time in prayer, repent, and then talk to God about how you can reach out and hopefully maybe rebuild that relationship in love with that other person. One of my favorite preachers is a man named Chip Ingram, and he wrote or said something in a sermon years ago that I wrote down on a piece of paper, and it says, "I desire to view others in terms of their eternity, where they're going to spend the rest of their life, and their need instead of their outward appearance, possessions, status, or abilities." This one little statement is so important that it's been on this card and on a desk where Aaron and I can see it since then. Now, if I were to add something to it, I would say, I desire to view others in terms of their eternity and need instead of their outward appearance, possessions, political affiliation, status, or abilities. See, I wouldn't let politics shouldn't keep us from loving another person or having a relationship with another person, just like any of those other things. When Jesus was trying to make this point about how we should be a neighbor to other people, he told a story which you can find in Luke chapter 10. I'm not going to read it, but to summarize it very quickly, there was a Jewish man, Jesus said, walking down a path. As he was walking down the path, bandits jumped out, beat him up, stripped him naked, and took everything he had and left him for dead. Not long after that, a priest came by, saw the man lying there near death, and instead of going to help him, He walked to the other side of the road and went on his way. Soon after that, a Levite, so was a helper in the temple, came along and saw the man in the same condition. He went over and looked at him, went around and went on down the road. Then Jesus said, a despised Samaritan, it says in the New Living Translation, a Samaritan who is half Jew, half Gentile, comes along, sees the man, has compassion on the man, picks him up, puts him on his own donkey, takes him to an inn where he bandages his wounds, cares for him, and then he has to leave. So he leaves money with the innkeeper and said, here's money for his care. If there's anything else you require to take care of this man, I will pay you when I get back. And he goes on his way. Then Jesus said, which of these three men was a neighbor to this man? And he said, the man replied, the one who took pity on him or had compassion on him. And Jesus said, you are correct. Go and do likewise. I've literally heard people say, if Donald Trump was drowning or Trump supporters were drowning, I would not lend a hand. Just like the Phil Collins song says, if I saw you drowning, I would not lend a hand. Or the opposite. If Biden or Biden supporters were drowning, I wouldn't do anything. That is not the heart of Christ. It's not the heart of Christ. And we need to do everything we can to build relationships with other people and rebuild them if we've damaged them. So think about this and really think about it going forward. No matter where you are in your life, how you feel, which side of the aisle you're on, as a Christ follower, we're supposed to love our neighbor as ourselves. We love people in terms of their eternity and need rather than their political affiliation or their possession status abilities or anything else. I hope this is helpful. I hope this reminds you of this important point that Jesus made in Luke 10. But maybe it'll also remind you of the Judds song, Love Can Build a Bridge. Go listen to that again. The Judds who wrote that song years ago, Love Can Build a Bridge. That's what we're called to do as Christ followers. Build a bridge to other people in the name of Christ in love. Go out and do that this week. Make that a part of your life. I'll do the same, and I'll see you next week.